Have you ever wondered why God created you? Have you ever contemplated what your purpose in life really is? Whether you have set your goal or you are struggling to envision it, through today's story, I will try help you find your life's purpose and hopefully motivate you to work on it. The title of today's story is The Babul Trees. First of all, let's determine whether you have discovered your real purpose or not. What's something you do all the time or like to do all the time? For example, I like to write stories and teach students. I don't easily get tired of writing or teaching. You might say you love to dance, sing, or paint. You might be thinking that becoming a doctor, engineer, banker, a law officer, or something else is your ultimate goal. There are so many options, and these are personal choices no one can decide for you. Now let's see if the goal you have chosen is a worthy one to pursue. Ask yourself, how many people will be benefited from what you do? How many people's lives will change for the better because of what you do? In my case, I have been told by my readers that they get motivated and inspired to work hard, study, and live happily and purposefully from reading my stories. My students have told me they learn new things about life and the English language in my classes. If your goal is touching others' lives and helping them in positive ways, that goal is exemplary. That is an admirable goal, and you must nurture it by continuing to exert a maximum effort to achieve the success that you may not have thought possible. When you have passion and commitment to achieve success in helping others, nothing and no one can be allowed to hinder your efforts. You must go ahead and work harder on it. However, if your goal does not benefit anyone beyond yourself and your family, you should rethink your ideas. Or if your goal is all about making money, I would definitely suggest that you should rethink your ideas and develop another goal. Many people think far too much about making money. They say, okay, if I do that thing, how much will I make? In my case, people ask me, how much money do I make from writing books? How much money do I make from making videos? The truth is, I don't worry about making money. It is enough for me when I see my videos and stories helping people learn something from them. It is enough for me that lives are in some way improved because of my work. It is better to give than to receive. Make sure your goal has a positive impact on others. Commit yourself to making a difference in the world. There are so many people that need your help. Let's now talk about a story, The Babul Trees. Have you ever wondered how many needy and poor people live around you? Have you ever wondered how many people go to sleep hungry in your neighborhood or on your street? Today's story will make you think about the needy people in your sphere of influence. Before we proceed with the details of this story, I'd like to share an overview and my inspiration for this story. The Babul Trees is a heartbreaking story of poverty. It shows how cruel some humans can be. The story tells of an adult whose deformity leaves her with the body of a child. She finds herself orphaned, who lives a hard life, crippled with disability. Will Kui survive even though the odds are stacked against her? Find out in a touching story about loss, hope, and having a faith to go on. Now I'll tell you how I came up with the ideas for this story. The Babul Trees was inspired by an old woman who used to come from a nearby village to beg in her town. One cold December morning, my 3-year-old daughter asked me to take her out on my bike. Our village is near to many other villages, including one called Samtia. We rode to Samtia and stood by a pond to watch birds catching fish early in the morning. There I saw that old woman wearing 3 different color kameezes or knee-length shirts because she didn't have a sweater. She was heading to our village to beg. I could not take my eyes off her. I felt so sorry and ashamed that people buy new sweaters each year even though when their old ones are not completely worn out. Her appearance and situation inspired me so much so that I went straight home to write about her. Even though my writer self was pleased, I was able to accurately describe the woman. Her real life circumstances still saddened me. I'll tell you more about the woman and how I helped her after the story. So now let's read, listen to and understand the story. That's not all. Later on, we'll go to Jade, who is going to be reflecting on the themes of today's story. Stay tuned and read and listen to the story carefully.
The Babul Trees by Rizwan Ahmed Memon. Children rushed to see me as I entered the Eddy Center. I was different from them in many ways, but one thing that we had in common was that we were all orphans. The supervisor in charge of the orphanage introduced me. Children, this is your new friend, Kui. She is older than all of you. One of the small children smiled shyly at me. Welcome, Kui. You will be safe here. The supervisor showed me around the center and told me how to act and what to do. The children wanted to talk to me, but I remained very silent and alone for many days. I worried that they would mock me, but no one did. Everyone seemed to have their own sad pasts. One day, the supervisor of the center came to me. Kui, the children really want to hear your story. Would you care to tell it to us? I don't have a story, I quietly replied. Everyone living here has a story to tell, prodded one of the older girls. Please tell us. Why did you come here? How did you get here? Where are your parents? I looked down at my small feet and remained silent for a few seconds, hesitant to speak. Come on, Kui. Don't be shy. We're all your friends, the supervisor encouraged. I lifted my head and began. I was born with a birth defect. I am not a child. My body has been stunted by this defect. I am almost 30 now, but I look like a 3-year-old. I remained at home all my life to avoid being mocked. I did not dare to play with other neighborhood children for fear of being teased or ridiculed by them. I could only do a few things normally because my legs and arms are too short and weak. Despite my deformities, my father and mother loved me very much. I was their only child. Kajlo, our dog, served well as my guardian, my ally, a co-conspirator in mischief, and my best friend. We lived by the graveyard in Samtia, in a house without walls. Thorn trees surrounded our house. Mother told me once that when they came to that place, only Babul trees grew there, so they wanted them to stay. The graveyard isolated our house from the other houses that stood on the far side of the cemetery. Olive orchards and ponds were the beauty of our Samtia. My father, Habib, cut the thorny branches of the Babul trees and put the branches around our house as a fence to protect us from intruders. The thorny branches made it difficult for anyone to pass unscathed. We felt happy in our little world. My father ran a donkey cart, delivering farmers' vegetables to the city to make ends meet. My devoted mother, Basran, eagerly sewed quilts and coverlets. She always helped my father run the house. I played games with my only loyal friend, Kajlo. One of our favorites was thread and note. I would tie a thin white thread around a 10-rupee note and then sit by the door. Kajlo would take the note and leave it in the middle of the road. When people passing by saw it and tried to grab it, I would pull the thread back. It was fun pulling the thread back as people saw and tried to grab the note. We loved that game. Our house didn't have a real wooden or iron door. Mother had hung a quilt on the logs of the babul trees on either side as a door. We had only a single room, covered with a thatched roof and babul logs as beams supporting the mud brick walls. Although my parents were only 50 years old, their hard lives had taken a toll on their bodies. Our difficult days started about 3 years ago. Father's only source of money had been delivering produce to the city of Larkana on his donkey-drawn cart, but he had grown too old and weak to operate it. Unfortunately, Baba, my father, had a serious accident. He lost control of the donkey, and the cart fell into a ditch, breaking both of the wheels. With the loss of my father's only means of livelihood, our lives became difficult. The hard life was also wearing out my mother. Her body was becoming frail, and her eyesight was failing to the point of not being able to thread a needle to sew the quilts. We didn't have enough money to buy food, and many nights we went to sleep hungry. Father started to look after the graveyard in order to get tips from the visitors. He swept the graves, watered the little neem trees, and put stones over the graves. He would go there early in the morning when people visited their loved ones. People didn't give him much. He barely made 50 rupees, and that was not every day. We suffered. Our dire situation forced my mother to beg. She went door to door in the nearby village. I will tell you about one of our days, New Year's Eve. The previous night, we had had nothing to eat. Mother was pretending to be asleep, covering her entire body with an old, worn-out sawar, a cotton coverlet. Father, Kajlo, and I were sitting in front of the fire that served as our kitchen under the babul tree. We cooked without gas, appliances, china pots, or an oven. We ate meals on the pindis, made out of date palm tree leaves, and we had plastic bowls. We burned the dried branches of the babul trees as our only fuel. These thorn trees had always been useful to us. When the Fajr Adhan, the morning call to prayer, could be heard, Mother removed her sawar. She could no longer bear to see us so hungry, so she was thinking about going to Akil early that day. Dia, Kui, she called me. Our relatives called me Kui, meaning a small female mouse. Ji Aman, I replied. I cannot see my slippers. Kajlo must have taken them. Father heard us. He had the slippers on his feet. Kajlo had brought them to him to wear because his own shoes had become too worn and one of the shoe's soles had come off. Father removed the slippers and gave them to Kajlo. Woof, woof, said Kajlo. He She went to Mother and put the slippers before her feet. I saw Mother had been wearing 2 chemises because she didn't have a sweater. She opened her box and took another chemise. I stared at her as she removed the knee-length shirt. "Why are you taking this chemise, Mother?" I inquired. "I'm going to wear it because it is so cold. I am going to Akil," she said without hesitating. "Mother, it is too early," I said nervously. "I'll walk slowly. By the time I arrive there, the sun will have risen." She favored me with her reassuring smile. "There might be stray dogs on the way. Dogs live in the guava orchards on the left side of the road," I reminded her. "They won't harm me," she said with a firm resolve. Father looked at her with red, tear-filled eyes. She took a babul stick and a small, torn bag. I worried people would laugh at her because she had worn 3 different colored chemises. The sun had grown high in the sky, and Mother hadn't returned yet. Commanding my body to move, I crawled to the nearby pond, diligently scanning the road to see if my beloved Mother was coming. It was a very cold morning, with a stiff breeze making the air even colder. After a few minutes, I could hear Kajlo barking in the house. This dog had spent many years with us and had faced many difficulties with us. He came out sniffing the dust to find me. "Woof, woof, woof!" barked Kajlo. He was probably asking me to get inside the house. I looked at the dog and at the road. I thought about how hard it must be for Mother to go every day to beg in Akil. Kajlo pulled my chemise and insisted that I go inside. I didn't move. I could only see my father sweeping a grave, collecting the fallen, dried, yellow leaves from the neem tree in the graveyard. After another hour, I finally saw Mother slowly making her way home. Her gait was measured, but her smile was infectious. I wished I could help her in any way. I wished there was something I could do to provide for my family. That day, I felt very inferior and helpless. I was the child who would never grow. "What are you doing out here? Get inside," Mother said as she reached me. "Look, I have brought enough food for tomorrow, too." My eyes filled with tears. She hugged me and said, "Good days come after the hard days. My child, don't you cry." Kajlo barked at Baba to tell him that Mother had brought food. The dog had been hungry too. "Mother," I commented, "Kajlo is happy to see the food." "Yes, he is. He has been here for a long time." Mother patted his head. "Our relatives don't feel our pain the same way Kajlo does. He understands our situation. The humans have lost their humanity, my child." "Why don't you go to the relatives for help, Mother?" "They know everything about us. I have gone to them for help many times, but they haven't done anything for us. There is a saying in Sindhi, 'Crying before the blind is useless.'" "Mother, I have also heard Father saying that asking for help from relatives is like asking for berries from a babul tree." "Yes, but these babul trees have been very useful to us, more useful than our relatives and neighbors." Mother distributed the food equally to everyone, including Kajlo. We ate the food and thanked God. Our days continued like that until one night when Father got very sick. Mother took the lantern and went to a keel to call in the doctor. She forgot to take her stick in her hurry. When she returned, Father had stopped breathing. Mother burst into tears, crying, "The doctor wouldn't open the door, neither the medical store man. I couldn't save you. I couldn't do anything for you." In the morning, Mother went to get help from the people on the other side of the graveyard. She gave Baba's brother's phone number to one of the men, and he informed him of Father's passing away. The neighborhood men dug a grave for Father and buried him. Uncle arrived from Khairpur after his burial. There were not many people in the congregation. Some women brought food and remained at our house of thorns until evening, and by the end of the day everybody had gone. My uncle left 1,000 rupee note in my mother's dupatta and said, "It was God's wish. We can do nothing." Father's death caused Mother a great deal of sorrow. She was broken-hearted and was becoming weaker and weaker every day. Her eyesight was rapidly declining, and she could no longer walk to a keel. Although she never wanted to, she went into the neighborhood to beg for food on the other side of the graveyard. I collected the small, fallen, yellow flowers from the thorn trees and put them in a plastic bag, which Kachlo took to my father's grave. My uncle never came to see us or pray at Father's grave. 2 years after Father's death, Mother's eyesight was now completely gone. The only way for her to reach the neighborhood was with the help of a Babul stick. One day, she didn't come home for a long time. I was terribly worried because Mother had left in the morning and she didn't return by evening. Kajlo constantly barked. The neighbors found Mother dead in a pond where she had fallen. She had hit her head and drowned. The villagers phoned my uncle once more. He scarcely waited until Mother was buried. He took me to Khairpur and had me admitted into this orphanage. He didn't allow me to take Kajlo with me. Tears filled my eyes. I felt a warm hand on my shoulder. "You are a very brave woman," said the supervisor. "Yes, very brave," the children agreed. "You've had a harder life than all of us." Children, this may be the saddest story I have heard in a long time. There are rights for neighbors in Islam. I try to live by one instruction that a saint gave me: love thy neighbor. We are commanded to take care of those less fortunate than us. It is hard to believe that people live in such abject poverty in Pakistan. For relatives not to help Kui's family is unthinkable to me. How the world has changed. The supervisor cleared his throat. We have all fought our battles, and the battles with hunger have been the toughest. Kui has very bravely fought both the battles of hunger and disability. After listening to my story, the orphan children seemed to have felt lucky to have normal bodies. Their sadness seemed to lighten a little, feeling cheered up for themselves, yet genuinely empathetic of my fate. However, I told them, I am happy with the way God created me. Let this be a lesson, the supervisor stated. Kui is a differently abled person. She is good at counting, and she picks up languages easily. She has picked up a good deal of English and Chinese in no time at all. That's right, I told them. The paradox of handicapped people is that the lack of ability in one area often results in a greater ability in other areas. For example, blind people are often gifted musicians or skilled at massage. Deaf people often have a very precise sense of sight. And short people often have big minds, said the supervisor. Cooey, thank you for telling us your story. Children, time to move to your rooms now. I watched the children go, but I could see the light in their eyes. The supervisor and I had given them a lot to think about, and maybe, just maybe, they would use this knowledge to make the world a better place.
When I shared the bubble trees with my students, one of them came to me the next day with a 1,000 rupee note, a sweater and a shawl. She asked me to give the sweater and shawl to the old woman is for the 1,000 rupees. However, the student asked me not to give the old woman the note outright. Instead, she requested that I ask the woman what she needed and asked me to buy those things for her. When I went to the old woman and asked her about her life, she told me the things that I had already written about in the story, such as her struggle against starvation and her family's apathy toward her plight. She also told me many things that I didn't know. I had created my story just by observing her from afar, looking at her house and watching her beg through the town. My student and I helped her as long as we were able to. It's time for today's story review. So let's go to Chad and see what he says about it. I'll motivate you for your goals a little more after the review. Stay tuned.
The Babul Trees by Rizwan Ahmed Memon is a short story about the difficult childhood of Kui, a woman with the birth defect of stunted growth. There are many positive lessons of themes throughout the story: the unconditional love of her parents despite the birth defect, and the sacrifices they made to ensure the survival of their only child. Kui's father taught resourcefulness by using the nearby babul trees and branches for protection from intruders as well as for fuel for a fire. Her mother also found usefulness from the babul trees by hanging a quilt for a door, as well as by using branches for a walking stick. One of the overall themes is that today's world has lost its humanity and compassion for others, especially for those who live in poverty. There are also families whose relatives will refuse to help when they are needed the most, and they unknowingly hurt those who love them the most. We are all fighting battles of our own that no one knows anything about. Kindness and compassion towards others in the form of love is necessary to make the world a better place for everyone. We all have our own unique gifts to offer to the world as our legacy, and Rizwan's short story shows that his storytelling has a way of teaching valuable lessons through connection of the heart. And I hope you enjoy this story as much as I have. My name is Chad.
Dear friends, there is no warranty on life. We are not guaranteed tomorrow. When you have the right goal for you, pursue it with all the patience you can muster. Tomorrow may never arrive. Start working on your goals before it's too late. We don't know what will happen tomorrow, so start working on your goals with the resources you have today, wherever you are. Recently, in one of my senior classes, I asked the students the same question. What's your purpose in life? What's your purpose in life? About 30% of the students said they hadn't thought about it. Another 50% told me they intended to become officers, doctors, teachers, and so on. The other 20% said they want to help others. I asked the 20% how they would help others. They said, Once we have jobs and we are established in our lives, we will help others. I said, I agree that you have discovered your real purposes in this world, that is helping others. However, your goal is still unclear. I told them, specifically you should have a clear picture of what goal you want to accomplish. A clear picture of what goal you want to accomplish. Merely saying that you want to help others is not enough. In what way will you help others? Second, a clear plan with a realistic time frame on how to achieve the goal. Third, a clear set of specific steps to execute your plan. So you should have a clear picture, a clear map, a clear set of steps to execute your plan. I told to the 20% who said they want to help others, by the time you get a job and you are established in your lives, you will have wasted your time. You might lose the passion to help others, or you might get into serious problems of your own. I asked them not to wait for years to help others. Bring that change that you want to see in your town or in your village. For example, if you want to clean your town, start a campaign by making posters or setting up dustbins. You can use some boxes for garbage collection, paint them, or just use them as they are. And it won't cost you much. If you have knowledge and skills in any field, use them to enlighten others. Let's say you are good at mathematics, geography, or any other subject. Share your knowledge with those who have never gone to school or those who can't afford to attend costly institutes. How about tutoring people? How about tutoring poor children of your neighborhood? There are so many ways that require no money at all. The question is this: how badly do you want your dream? If we want our dreams to come true, no one can stop us from achieving them. Every new day is a chance for us to work hard on our goals. So we must strike while the iron is hot. We must not let any day go to waste. This all for today. I'll be back with a new story soon. So make sure you have subscribed and clicked on the bell icon so you don't miss my upcoming videos. Until then, goodbye and enjoy your studies.